Disclaimer. This video contains topics about depression, depersonalization, derealization, birth control, and menstrual health. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time you're watching this video, and welcome to a vlogmas you probably didn't expect. I have been depressed 3 times in my life, and one of those times was Christmas last year. I have decided to share my personal experience for educational and informative reasons, and also just to open up a little bit more about myself online, to normalize the talk of mental health and health in general. Every single person has a case-by-case, unique experience with mental health, and this is part of mine. Okay, we're gonna start off with some information about my physical health. When it comes to my menstrual health, it's not the greatest. Ever since high school, I have had crippling period cramps. I can't get up, I can't function for the day, and that's just the reality. I don't know why. I've been to doctors, nobody has really been able to give me an answer, but that's just how it is. I do have pain medication, I have prescribed naproxen, but I don't really know if it's working really as a painkiller. It doesn't really make a difference. Back in June 2017, I was dating Will at this time, and I started to have really bad cramps. Now, I would usually say this is normal, but it wasn't happening during my period. It was more located on my left lower side, and I was just in incredible pain. And it lasted for a week, and it didn't go away. And Will and my mom urged me to go to Emerge. That's funny. Urged me to go to Emerge. So I spent, I don't know how many hours waiting in line to get my tests done. And by the end of the night, when it came to my turn, they were like, oh, you should have been here, you should have been taken care of way earlier because all of the ultrasound technicians have gone home. I'm sorry, we can't check if you have appendicitis or not. You have to go back home and come back in the morning, which is kind of scary if you think that you might possibly have appendicitis because you don't want it to burst and die in your sleep. Thankfully, I didn't have appendicitis, spoiler alert, but they filled me up with a bunch of anti-inflammatory drugs and I slept like a baby that night. The next morning I go, my blood is great, my ovaries are great, my uterus is great, everything seems fine, except the theory that I must have had a cyst and it burst because my ovaries are covered in all these tiny, tiny little polyps. So I guess they're not cysts, but they're like almost cysts or just like waiting to be cysts. They sit me down and tell me the only 2 things that will prevent you from getting more cysts and having more pain is 2 options. Get pregnant or take birth control. I wasn't gonna get pregnant at that time, so I guess birth control was my only option. I was somebody who never wanted to take oral birth control. It works great for a lot of people, and I know a lot of girls in which it benefits greatly, but me personally, I just kind of had a bad feeling about taking birth control. I have a funny history with medicine. My body kind of reacts differently than the majority. And I have weird idiosyncrasies, like I have asymptomatic strep. I scratch at my neck when I'm nervous, and now it's like bright red because I'm so pale. So I go to my family doctor, and she gives me the lowest dosage, aka whatever dosage it is that has the absolute least amount of symptoms or least amount of worries about intensive symptoms. Because my doctor knows me, she's been taking care of me since I was a baby, and she was like, let's start off really nice and simple. I start birth control. Now we're gonna fast forward up to October, which is when Will and I actually got married. Now this is when I started to feel really funny. Funny in a bad way. Leading up to our wedding, I had the usual stresses of getting married, I think, and I wasn't nervous marrying Will at all. I had complete peace and comfort knowing that I was marrying the right guy. Then things started to become familiar. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I have had depression 3 times in my life, like a distinctive depressive episode 3 times in my life, and each time it always starts with incredibly intense, intrusive, obsessive thoughts. These incredibly negative and disturbing and psychologically messy thoughts just keep flowing into my brain and I can't get them out. I don't know how to explain it other than they come out of nowhere. You don't ask for them. There's definitely triggers. Things trigger them and it gets so bad that it starts infiltrating my sleep. I have incredibly stressful dreams and depressing dreams and they affect me through my day and evening. But at this point, I'm not telling anybody because I'm thinking, what is this? I've done this before, like I've been to counseling before and they taught me how to get through this, so I can do it by myself. I can do it. I'm just going to do my exercises. I'm going to pray a lot. I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to do this okay because I'm getting married and I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be unbelievably happy right now. I don't have time to be depressed or anxious. The wedding was lovely. When you're depressed, it doesn't mean that every single day is the worst, and it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy things and feel happy. Depression is a whole complicated state. My wedding was lovely, and I had an absolutely lovely time. And I will say that we did have a lovely honeymoon. We went to Toronto, we ate delicious food, and we got to hang out with each other. But I was depressed. I couldn't sleep at night. Will would fall asleep next to me completely fine, and I couldn't fall asleep. And when I did, I didn't want to be asleep anymore because of my dreams. This is when I started to get concerned. I'm thinking, why am I depressed? What's triggering this? Why do I have to be depressed now? I'm a newly married woman. It's my honeymoon. It's the start of a whole new chapter. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be good. I don't want to tell anybody at this point because I'm embarrassed. I'm thinking everything right now in my life is supposed to make me happy. Why am I not happy? Why am I so depressed? That's basically what was going through my mind, which kept me from telling people. I just didn't want to admit it because I didn't want them to think like, oh, my marriage is bad, or I made the wrong decision, or that I was having doubts about Will. That's basically most of it. I didn't want people to think I was having doubts about my marriage, and that's why I was depressed, because it wasn't. It's just these horrible, invasive thoughts were taking over my mind, and I had no control over it. Leading up to Christmas, it got way worse, and that's when I realized something was really wrong. Everything I had done in the past, everything that my counselors had taught me to do, didn't seem to be working, and I couldn't fight it. And this is when I started to have my first symptoms of depersonalization and derealization. And that's when I knew that I couldn't do this alone anymore. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced depersonalization or derealization. The best way that I can describe it is that you are living, but you're not there. You are seeing, like you can see, but you're not seeing. You can eat food, but you can't taste it. You can touch somebody, but not feel them. It's really horrible when you pull somebody in for a hug. You know that you're hugging physically, but it feels like your spirit or your soul of your person is separate from your body and is not close to that person at all. It's like you go from one whole to two separate, and there's your physical and your spirit, and they're not connected anymore. It's like they've been untethered. That's what it feels like for me. It feels almost like watching myself in the third person. So a dream-like state constantly, and that's not fun. So I tell Will what I want for Christmas, and I actually request Dodie's book, Secrets for the Mad, because I know that she talks about her experiences in that book, and I felt like I needed someone to tell me what I was feeling, I guess, or I needed an explanation or a description of what I was feeling, because at the time I couldn't put it into words, and I needed an outlet. I needed somebody to describe it for me so I could tell my family and friends. At the time, I was making Vlogmas, so you can tell that I know, I can have a good time and I can act for the camera. But what's funny is, nearing up to Christmas, as I was making Vlogmas, Apparently, my grandma actually texted my mom asking if I was okay. She said something along the lines of, Naomi doesn't look like herself in her videos. Is she okay? I get to Christmas, I get Dodie's book for Christmas, and I start reading it. And that's when I read all the descriptions of what I'm feeling, and I feel validated, and I feel ready to tell family and friends. I tell Will. He's not surprised. He lives with me. He knows I'm depressed. He was waiting for me to tell him myself when I was ready. And we start to try to figure out a game plan on how to work through this together. I have my dad over, and we eat Burger King burgers. And I start crying into my burger and tell my dad. And he comforts me and tells me that everything will be all right and I will be able to make it through. Just telling people made it so much easier already. A few months pass and it gets a little better, but not really. It's still really bad, and I'm starting to feel like I'm drowning. At this point, it's getting unbearable, and I want out. I want out of my own body. I want out of my own mind. All I want to do is just sleep and have a night without horrifying dreams. I just want to be able to go for a walk and not have to fight off intrusive thoughts, or be able to hug my husband and feel close. And all of these things aren't happening for me, and I'm starting to get desperate. But that is when I noticed, one day, out of nowhere, I felt good. And it would last a few days, and then it would disappear. And I would go back into my depression. And then after a while, I'd have a day of relief. And it would feel like I was underwater in a pool lying on the bottom, and I would have the strength to swim up and come up for a breath of air. And I would feel clear, and I would feel great for a couple days. And then, poof, back down to depression again. Back down to the depersonalization, derealization, and the deep pit that I was in, back under the water. I found the pattern. Every single time I started the week of placebo pills, I felt like a human being again. For the next 2 months, I track this, and I realized that every single time I get to the week of placebo pills and take a sugar pill, I feel like I can breathe again. So I come to the conclusion that it's my pills, obviously. I'm confused, like, these are supposed to be the low dosage. These aren't supposed to make me depressed. These are supposed to help me. Why do everybody else I know, when they take the pill, they seem fine on it. It seems to help them. So many people take this. Why am I reacting this way? So I wanted to be stubborn, and I wanted to keep taking the pills until I saw my doctor so she could tell me what to do. But I started not being able to swallow the pills, because once you know what is literally killing you from the inside, your body refuses to put that in anymore. It was like somebody was trying to give me poison every morning, and I was like, I can't swallow it. I can't do it. I don't want to go back under the water. I go to the doctor, I tell her exactly what happens, and I tell her, I don't want to take these anymore. I need to get off. Can we please try a different dosage? And I'm incredibly blessed to have such a wonderful doctor who took me 100% seriously and didn't even question me whatsoever. She listened, turned, grabbed the birth control chart, and said, okay, what other dosage would you like to try? So we go with a dosage that family members that I know have been on it before, and it works for them. So I went on that for the next 2 months, and it got a lot better. It still wasn't worth it, and I stopped on my own. I didn't even have to ask. I think I called my doctor and said, I'm not going to take it anymore, just so that she could put it in her notes. But I was like, no, I give up. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. I'm poisoning myself. It took about 3 to 4, maybe 5 months for my body to reset itself. And I am back to the clear-headed, mentally healthy Naomi that I missed so much for so long. We're back to square one. I either choose birth control or having a baby. And Will and I do plan on having kids in the future. We don't know exactly when. I know that that will happen at some point if we are able to have children. It's easy to get sad thinking my honeymoon was ruined, my first months of marriage were ruined. Those were supposed to be joyful, blissful moments that instead were covered in a dark fog. But I'm trying to remember that Will and I are married for the rest of our lives now, so why be sad about a small period of time in the past when I can look towards the future? I'm so grateful that we figured out that it was the pill before I went on and went through it for way longer than I had to. I just wanted to be more open to you guys about my personal life a little bit, and that I'm not always the cheerful person you see on camera, and not everything is perfect in my life, because I know as a consumer of social media and YouTubers myself, when you look at somebody on YouTube, you're like, wow, everything's so perfect all the time. And it's definitely not, because I'm literally the exact same as you. Just I have, for some reason, decided to put a camera in front of me and talk to an audience. That's basically the difference. That's it. I get to choose either bad mental health with no pain or good mental health with pain. And I think that this is definitely the better one. Yeah, this probably wasn't the Vlogmas that you expected, but I wanted to share anyways. Whatever you're going through, you can get through it, you can figure it out, and I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas. You guys are great. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.